Live from Hollywood, it's the Billy Masters Show. And now, please join us in welcoming the star of our show, Billy Masters.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday, April, whatever the hell day it is, April 2nd. April 2nd. Hello. Welcome to the show. There are some new things, obviously, I think you're seeing. First off, Sling is off. Sling is off, and we are starting physical therapy today. So fingers crossed if I'm going to get physical therapy and a little bit of corona. But we're hoping. Hoping that everything looks good there. And obviously, a new set. Do you see the beautifulness of the set? Oh my God, it's magical almost. It's almost like I'm professional. So I just watched the Sunday night Elton John concert, and I am thrilled they raised money. I think it's great, but it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and we'll get to the smoke and the mirrors. They say live, like from their homes. Like, this is from my home. You may not realize it, but this is my home. We've had construction in here. But, you see like the Backstreet Boys, totally 5 people, 5 different cameras, totally singing in sync. Not in sync the band, but in sync. No audio problems, no video problems. Everything's fabulous. And then you get to me, Butterfly, Mariah Carey. All right, first off, she's allegedly in her studio doing this live, oop, I'm nervous, oop, oopy doo. Okay, whatever. First off, I'm thinking to myself, God, she looks great. And she's quarantined and sequestered. And boy, she does her makeup and hair beautifully, although she was a hairdresser at one point. Then she starts singing. Suddenly, wind machines are going. And, I just picture those little kids of hers, whatever, Monroe and Marrakesh or something, blowing like with fans. And then at certain points in the songs, she turns and she's looking in a different camera. Then she turns again, there's another camera. So there's at least 3 cameras in Mariah Carey's studio. Then there are 3 cameras in each of her backup singers' apartments. Then there's a camera in the piano player's apartment. They're all allegedly sequestered. They're all live. Everybody is in sync, not the band, in sync. And I'm just, and also, can I just say this as a fellow broadcaster? I'm here with headphones. I've got the headphones on so I can hear you. I never have to sit here like this. Okay, now granted, I'm not singing any of those notes that only dogs can hear, but whatever. I never am like this. I'm also usually not in an outfit 3 sizes too small trying to tiptoe across the stage, although I have. So anyway, that I thought was a little ridiculous, but whatever. I think a lot of it was produced. I think a lot of it was pre-taped, and they're talking to Elton in the living room. But whatever, they raised money, they raised funds, they raised awareness, they got some good information out there. They kept the kids entertained, which is all we can do. So fabulous. Okay, so I usually start the show with the celebrity story, and I think this will be interesting for my first guest. Now, I'm from Boston. I'm in Boston right now with the parents, although I live in LA. And in Boston, there was a talk show on WBZ, the NBC affiliate, called People Are Talking, which was hosted by a very young Tom Bergeron. Now, I had done some work, like not paid, but work for WBZ. They also had a very popular radio station that had talk radio. And I had been very interested in talk radio. I had befriended many of the engineers, producers on show talent. So I would sneak out of my house at 4 a.m. and go to the studio, when I was in like junior high. I mean, I was very young. And go there all the time. So I was kind of well known to the people there, and I could come and go. So one of the guests, and what would happen is each city back then used to have their own entertainment reporter. And people would come in town to either do a book signing or do a concert, and Tom Bergeron would get them. Now, again, big names were far and few between. You weren't getting Mimi, but you did get Mary Hart and John Tesh, which were two of the biggest names in entertainment reporting, along with our first guest. And Mary Hart was the first guest on that show. And I was there. Now, when you see this clip, you're going to realize that I didn't even look at the date. I'm guessing maybe 18 or 19. I didn't know Mary. I wasn't doing this column, obviously. But just notice A, how I asked the question, B, all the sections of my question, and C, when Mary asks me a question back, what I say to her. Okay? So those are the things you got to know. Here is the clip from People Are Talking.
We have many nice venues here, as they say. Who has a question over here?
You've opened for Don Rickles. You've been on Circus of the Stars. You filmed a sitcom about a season ago, though it didn't get picked up. What's next? What are you looking for?
I don't know, but would you be my biographer?
No.
Really?
You know.
You're a fan, huh?
Well, I just know.
Well,
All right, now let's break that down first. First off, I'm rattling off her credits, and in her credits, I mentioned Circus of the Stars because that's a credit. And what are you going to do next, Mary? And okay, and I also mentioned you did a sitcom, although it wasn't picked up. Thanks for bringing that up. And then the best part is when she asks, would you be my biographer, without even thinking, no. I'm just hateful. Okay, so the other thing is that when I meet people, I always get photos. Here's the kind of picture you get after you've basically insulted Mary Hart on live television. There, that's a picture of Mary Hart. And then in case that wasn't good enough and you say, oh, let's try again. All right, now I look like I've had a stroke. Okay, so these are the kinds of, this is why I can't have probably a mainstream talk show, because I do just say it because, as I said in that clip, when he says, are you a fan? No, I just know. And one of the things I know a lot about is our first guest. Steve Kmetko, as far as I'm concerned, had it all. As a young gay man, I think I was out at the time, I would watch E! Like religiously. It was the only thing that really I wanted to watch. And you had this guy on there who was not openly gay, who was gorgeous, who was funny, had that little something that gay people recognize in each other, and loved older legendary actors and actresses as I do. And I'm going to show you just a little clip before we bring him on. So just watch this.
How do you want to be remembered?
As a good actress.
I don't think that's going to be a problem.
You don't? Will you say that for me when I'm gone?
Certainly.
It's not going to be too far away, though. So you have to rehearse it now.
Is there anything you have not done yet that you want to?
I think I have to brag a bit and say I've done everything I wanted to. I think I have to say that.
He interviewed Betty Davis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my first guest for the day, the fabulous, the legendary Steve Kmetko. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Billy. How are you?
I'm okay. How
I'm
are
in
you?
Chicago.
Yes, and how are you getting through all this? Are you alone in the house?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, and I'm doing what everybody else is doing. I sit at home and I wait for all the things I ordered online because you can't go out and shop.
And I think we have a 30-day I think we have like a 30-day moratorium on all non-essential Amazon products.
Oof, yes.
So
I know. I'd like to go to the 7-Eleven, but I think it's off limits.
Have you gone out at all?
Yes, I did. Last Sunday, before it got a little stricter, I went to the Jewel grocery store to buy some things. And I had my rubber gloves on and my little mask. And it was funny to go through the grocery store. It was the first time I'd been there since all this stuff started. And I wanted to get like about a week's worth of groceries. And walking through there, people were all keeping their distance. Maybe it had nothing to do with coronavirus. But,
trust me.
But they're all, I came around the corner where the cereal was, and I was going to go up the next aisle, and there was somebody standing against there, like she didn't want to get too close. But and they've put up those plexiglass germ protectors by all
like
the
a sneeze guard, right?
By all the checkout registers. So that was new. But it was nice getting out. That's one of the things that I hate the most about this is you just can't get up and go.
Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and we were talking about, this was not online, and we were talking about 9/11, which was the last big tragedy that we lived through. But that was a day, again, at the time, we didn't know if it was the beginning of something or if it was an isolated incident. And after 4 days, flights started again. People were, I just remember I was on one of the first flights out of Boston to go back to LA. And it was packed, but you could hear a pin drop. People didn't know. But this is so much bigger because it's going on forever. We don't know how long this is going to last either.
What are you doing to pass the time? This is a
Talking
good idea.
To fabulous people like Steve Kmetko. No, well, I've said this before, but Seth Rudetsky and his husband James Wesley are doing this on for the Actors Fund, which is actorsfund.org. And they're doing 2 a day, which I don't know how they do it. And I thought it was great. And I was watching it and I complimented them. And Seth said, then get off your ass and do it. We have to just keep people entertained. This is the new normal. And so I thought to myself, you have to find your own angle. And you go through your Rolodex and say, the way my column is structured, talking about celebrities and friends with a lot of people, I said, that's what my fans are interested in. So let's speak to them and just give people like an hour of entertainment and maybe a little bit of information.
I love Seth Rudetsky. I have never met him.
Oh, you would love him.
He has the most informative show on Sirius XM.
Yes.
Everything you want to know about Broadway, he knows. He's like a walking encyclopedia. Sometimes he talks so fast I can't keep up listening, but I'd really like to meet him sometime. I think he's fabulous, to use a gay word.
Well, yes, and again, I kind of look back on generations of people because you were sort of when did you start at E? What year?
It was 1994.
Okay, and was that the first national exposure? Because I know you'd been in regional markets.
Right. No, before that, I had been working for CBS, and I was on CBS This Morning with Harry Smith and Kathleen Sullivan, and then Paul Azan. I was the Hollywood-based entertainment reporter for 3 years.
And that's how you got E?
Well, E had been after me for a while. They kept calling. And at that time, when I came up in college, you didn't want to work for a cable outlet. Cable was like,
sure.
You wanted to work for one of the big 3 networks. But then I went to E for an interview. And one of my former CBS colleagues was the news director, Tom Searson. And he said to me, I felt the same way when I came here. But I got to tell you, my 3 young sons, all they know is what channel it is on TV. They don't know if it's cable or if it's network or if it's, whatever it is.
Right.
Come work with us. So he convinced me. And it was a great time. It was the best job I ever had. I loved it.
Well, you became really the face of the network. And you went through many co-hosts. Who was the first person?
First one was Bianca Ferrar.
Oh, Bianca. Yes, I remember her. She
Her
didn't
real name
last
was
that
Shirley
long.
Beltran.
What? Oh, really? I didn't. Is that true?
Yes.
Didn't
Maybe
know
I shouldn't
that.
say that.
Well, that's all right. I love that. I remember you had, that newswoman who had the salt and pepper. When the gray started coming in her hair, there was a big issue. Who was that?
Kathleen
That was
Sullivan.
Kathleen. Right. So your old friend. And
Right.
I just remember people being, and it was funny because we didn't have a youth-obsessed culture at that point, or maybe we did and I wasn't aware of it, but I remember people being like, oh, that old woman with Steve Kmetko, and why doesn't she dye her hair?
She was hired for her. She came on to work the OJ trial. We covered the OJ trial.
Right? Yes, of course.
And she had great news chops.
Yeah.
So the shows she did live about the OJ trial really got great ratings.
And that's how she ended up on E, obviously.
Yes.
Go
Jules
ahead.
Asner, of course.
Well, Jules, we'll get to Jules.
Oh, okay. I love Jules.
She lasted with you the longest.
Yes.
It seemed to me, because you were really the golden pair. That also was around the time that really things exploded. You had red carpet interviews. You were flying everywhere, to Cannes, to Venice, to every event that was happening. You were there. That's
Berlin.
Big budget for them.
Right. Berlin and, what's the one in Utah? Sundance.
Sundance, yeah, right.
See, the mind is going.
That's all right. But what I used to remember, this is something I really based a lot of what I do on, was that you weren't just interviewing the celebrities, they knew you. There was this camaraderie, there was this fun that not everybody has, that people would run over to you to play. Julia Roberts would see you and basically dry hump you. I mean, it was insanity.
Thank you. She was very, very kind to me. I always felt as though I was there as a conduit between the stars and the folks at home. It wasn't about me, it was about them. And I enjoyed doing that and giving them a good platform. I'll tell you, can I tell you a story? One red carpet story?
Please.
I just finished reading this book on Elaine Stritch.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about older ones.
Yep.
I was on the red carpet for Fox the year she was nominated for At Liberty. And she was coming down the red carpet and no one was talking to her. Everybody wanted to talk with all the reality stars.
Sure.
Omarosa was there that year. And so I signaled to a friend of mine who was accompanying Elaine to bring her over. I wanted to do an interview. And she brought her over, and Elaine, who had typical Elaine, she said to me, "You don't even know who the fuck I am." And I thought, well, the gauntlet has been thrown down. So I stopped and I looked at her and I said, "Does anyone still wear a hat?"
And then she's like, "I know him."
From the Ladies Who Lunch.
Yep.
And she got a little grin on her face. And she said, "Okay, go ahead. Ask your damn questions." She was so wonderful. And of course she won that night. That was fun.
Right.
But I miss it. I miss it a lot.
I remember, you brought up Omarosa. Now here's the difference. I was at the Emmys that year. They were still at the Shrine at that point.
Right.
And I did not watch Celebrity Apprentice, or it was just Apprentice, I believe, at that time. And Omarosa saw me meeting different people and getting photos, which we did at the time. Even though you weren't supposed to have cameras in, I always got a camera in. And Omarosa came up to me and said, "Would you like a photo with me?" This is the first person I ever met who was, again, a celebrity, who asked me if I wanted to take a picture with them. And I'm like, it's a new world.
It is a new world, I taught a class last year at Columbia College here in Chicago, my alma mater, and it was called On-Camera Presentation. And I talked to the kids, my students, about some of the stuff I'd done, and they had a lot of questions. And I talked to them about Betty Davis. Not a clue.
Apropos of the clip we just showed.
Yes, not a clue. And that's when I thought, well, maybe your time was up. I had an agent who said to me, "Steve, face it, you've passed your sell-by date."
See, and I think that's just horrible, but I get it, but
Yes.
It's horrible.
Live and learn.
Well, I think that, it really goes back to what we said about when you were with Kathleen Sullivan, that, you were now, again, there was probably 15 to 20-year age difference between the two of you.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
No?
No.
Well, you look
We were far
significantly
closer in
younger.
age than you think.
You
I'm
know,
67, just for the
okay.
record.
Okay. I would have looked that up if I needed to. Yeah, you know, but I guess, you know, I should even look closer to today. When Meredith Vieira was on The View, she had gray roots coming in, and they would have a root cam that would come down and show. And eventually ABC told her, get rid of those roots. So I don't know if maybe anything has changed, regardless of how good you are. And so seasoned and experienced in doing your job, you also have to look good.
Yeah. Yep. That's a requirement. You know what I'm enjoying right now? All these newscasters. I'm a news junkie. I have MSNBC on 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And all these people are coming from their basements, from their living room, from their den.
Sure.
And they don't know how to do makeup. Yesterday, I was watching Tony DeCopel, who's a very good reporter on CBS this morning. And he looked like he had just rolled out of bed. His hair was kind of tousled, and I could see a little blemish, although I shouldn't talk. And
Well,
it's just kind of funny. There was a movie, I can't remember the name of it. Lisa Gibbons was in it. And she played a newscaster. And there was some plot line where she didn't have a makeup person. She had to stay at the studio. And every time she kept appearing, she had more zits, and hair wasn't quite so part of the plot device, but it was very funny.
Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I started doing these, I hadn't done anything on the air from my home. Obviously, I've been in studios where you're not looking into the camera. Again, you have anchor skills, so you know how to do that. I'm used to looking at whomever I'm talking to. And so now this was a whole new skill set. So I'm like, okay, I can't look at you in the screen. I have to look at the camera. You don't want to not engage with the people watching at home. And I'm worrying about all this. And then I have this friend saying, you need more lights. Don't wear the glasses because we can see the reflection from the monitor. Someone else, could you have done your hair a little better? Someone else, make your bed. We're looking at your bed in the background. And so it's been a learning curve. And I'm like, we're just doing this from home. Who am I impressing? But apparently we have to a little bit.
I suppose so. That part of the job hasn't changed. Appearances.
Is that? Do you feel though that it has gotten more prevalent? You must have been there to see it inching more and more in importance, and even overtaking skill.
Well, no, I don't want to come off as bitchy.
Please,
yeah,
please,
I suppose I did see that.
All right, because it seems to me I saw it, and it really was, again, what I considered the golden age of E, when that's what you watched. You started seeing not seasoned reporters who you knew, but younger modelly types who maybe didn't have a lot to offer and learned on the job. I'm not saying they didn't learn, but they seem to have been cast like soap opera actors and actresses.
Well, you know, if I may blow my own horn a little,
Please.
I had a genuine interest in this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Sitting down with Betty Davis, that interview took place at CBS. But sitting down with some of these people, I love the job. I love the industry. I had a genuine interest in it. And so I think that kind of showed, and I'm glad.
Yeah, and now speaking of Betty Davis, she said something to you at the end of that interview. I remember the full interview. This was obviously taken from a clip. But what did she say to you when it was all over?
Well, she signed a copy of her book to me, and she wrote, "Dear Mr. Kmetko, you're really quite good." She signed her name. And the funniest thing from that interview, I thought, we were talking about Whales of August. Her co-star was Lillian Gish, talk about the golden age of Hollywood.
Sure.
And what was it like working with Miss Gish? She can claim the same amount of time in front of a camera that you can. And she looked at me and she said, "Miss Gish never should have left silent pictures. She was full of piss and vinegar. Betty was. I loved her though.
Well,
Really
again,
loved
I think, like you said, I think that shows. I think that when I write about somebody, now there are people that I've written not positive things about because that is part of the job. But I think I couldn't do my job if I didn't love it. And if there's something I really hate, typically I don't write about it. I haven't had anyone on this that I don't like, although eventually I'm sure I will. And that will be fun. But I think that, even if I criticize you or a guest and we're talking back and forth and bantering, somebody can say they're disagreeing, but there is still a love and a respect there. Because if not, why bother? For me.
I understand completely.
Well, all right, we're going to go to our next guest because what I want to do is I want to do a bit with each of you, and then I want to have a little discussion with all three of us. So, Steve,
Okay.
I'm going. You can just stay right there. You can keep watching, and I'm going to. I will just take you out of the screen if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, good. So, oh my God, it's going so smoothly. It's almost frightening. So, our next guest, I think anyone who knows me knows I am a huge Go-Go's fan. The Go-Go's were my band. They hit when I was a kid, and I felt like I came of age as they rose to superstardom as the first all-female band to play their own instruments, write their own songs, and have a #1 hit record. So, and still, by the way, 25 years later, 30 years later, I think, he'll tell me, they are still the only group to have done that, only all-female group to have done that. And so I got to know the Go-Go's as a kid. And I say a kid, but really, I think I'm less than 10 years younger than Belinda Carlisle. But for whatever reason, I got to know Belinda's son, James Duke Mason, and he was living in France at the time. I don't remember how we first met. He may remember. But again, it used to be the son of Belinda Carlisle. What was the chance he wasn't going to be gay? But I know a little bit about James's father, who is Morgan Mason, son of legendary film actor James Mason. And now Morgan, people don't know a lot about Morgan because he was politically active and he was a filmmaker. But as a kid, he would hang out on the sets with his father, and he loved Elizabeth Taylor, and he was very close with Judy Garland. And then when he got older, he actually dated, perhaps just slept with Joan Collins. So I'm sitting there saying, how did he not end up gay with those three? So between the two of them, they ended up with a wonderful, articulate, thoughtful, just lovely son who I'm very proud to have gotten to know. And here's a little clip of James as a kid when he came out. Watch this clip.
Hi there, guys. My name is James Duke Mason. I'm 18 years old, and I wanted to do this message today because I know how hard it can be to be an openly gay teenager, how difficult it can seem to be gay. I promise you, in the end, it's worth it. You're going to live the life that you dream of and the life that you've always wanted to live. So it gets better. It really does.
I hacked it, James. I'm sorry. We only can do 30-second clips. But that was for the It Gets Better campaign. He was in college at the time, so I think he had only been out 4 years. And so I am thrilled now, all these years later, to have James Duke Mason, who, of course, I know as Dookie. Hey, Dookie.
Hey, Billy.
How are
you?
you? I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm sorry this camera's not better. It's a new computer, and yet the camera sucks. But yeah, we'll do it.
Again, we do what we can.
But it's great to see. I can't believe that clip. I mean, hard to believe that was 10 years ago.
Is it 10 by now?
2010 is when I was in college. Yeah, so I was barely 18 years old at the time, which is great.
So I met you, let's see. So I probably in person, because we had known each other via remote. I guess you were is it possible you were 18 when we first met?
And I think we had communicated over Facebook or
emails or something.
Or YouTube before then, maybe when I was like 17, still living in France.
Yeah, I remember. And one of the things I remember about you coming out, and it's really interesting. Well, there's so many interesting things. The two that I'm going to focus on is first, how you came out to your parents. And, I'll just encapsulate it very quickly. You came out to your mom first. And then you both of you conspired as to when the right time was to tell your father. And your father, who is not, I know your father pretty well, not homophobic, but it is a father-son dynamic, I think. Oh, yeah. And what do you think now, so many years later?
Yeah, well, and keep in mind, okay, it was only 15 years ago, but even 15 years ago, the world was kind of a different place. And I think it was only when once Glee became such a part of pop culture that things became fully, mainstream in terms of like gay representation. And so, even in 2006, my dad was progressive and, he'd had a lot of gay friends, but it was still kind of a scary thing. Even my mom said, that she, it wasn't that she had an issue with it, but it was like, okay, it's going to be a more difficult life potentially for him because of this. And so I think for him, it was more just, being concerned for my well-being and, for the kind of world that I grow up to live in. But I came out to her first, and then I told my friends at school, and then eventually I told him. And later on, he said that, it really upset him because he thought, wait a second, I'm your father, and everybody else knew this before I did. And so,
sure.
I kind of regretted that. But at the same time, when you're someone's only child, only son,
right.
it's kind of a difficult thing sometimes.
Well, I think, I remember there was a lot of criticism about many celebrities, how they dealt with it. And I remember Cher, when Chastity, who at the time was still a girl and came out as a lesbian, and Cher, who was probably the biggest fag hag next to your mother, had said that, I had to rewrite what I had envisioned her life would be in my head. And you kind of have to mourn the loss of that dream for your child. And you also have to think to yourself, you'd never want your child to have anything that is going to make their lives more difficult, which, whatever we say, it does make it more difficult.
Well, especially now. Even it was funny, during Pride last year, I was, just going around LA and seeing all the, Pride flags and all the windows and everything. And I was thinking, like, if I were a straight person, I would say, like, oh my, even if I was sympathetic to gays, I'd be like, oh my God, like gay is everywhere now. And I think that even 15 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case. So I think, but yes, you're right. Still to this day in the South and a lot of, in fact, most countries around the world, being gay is still even criminal in some places. So, and even in America, it's still very much an issue, even though I think sometimes people try to pretend that it's no longer a problem. But if you go to Arkansas or Alabama or, those types of places, and there's still a lot of discrimination.
Well, we'll go back to the It Gets Better campaign, which was trying to combat gay youth suicide. Really, that was the big message. And I always felt that it was somewhat of a misnomer, because I don't think it, being the world, gets better. I think you get better, because once you start coming out to people, which is a hard thing to do, each time somebody accepts you, you gain a little bit of stature, and you own who you are, to the point that, yeah, I'm gay, what's it to you? Like, it's not my problem any longer. And if you hang in there long enough to get to that point, you almost look back and think, why was it so hard back then? Because it's scary.
100%. And, even things that at first obviously at first it's things as simple as just being able to say it. And then it's feeling nervous about holding your boyfriend's hand in public. And it's, I'm sure for me, it's also because I live in such a tolerant, accepting gay, place. But I think it also is just that I've over 10, 15 years now just gotten so comfortable with myself and with
right.
Not caring what other people think. So yeah, I think it's the way other people behave, but yes, I think a lot of it is also just the way that you think about yourself and just you don't care at a certain point what other people think.
Well, like we said, if your parents have to rewrite that script in their head, so do you.
100%.
Obviously, it starts from the inside. But what I think is interesting is you were living in France at the time that you came out. You were in a private school, going to school in a school bus. Now, I mean, nobody would picture this. You figure, Belinda Carlisle living in France, she's, her kid's not going to school on a school bus, but he is. And presumably you had kids in your class that had known you for years. So you were the same person when you came out to them that you had been for many years. These aren't new people. So how were there people who accepted it, some people who already questioned it, some people had a problem with it? Was it everything?
I think because I was already kind of a weird, unusual person or kid to begin with. I mean, even before I came out, I was a political, junkie, an American kid of a celebrity or whatever. So I think already I was kind of considered weird or just not not your typical kid. So when I came out, it wasn't as much of a shock as I think it would have been had I been like, the jock or the soccer player, So, but it was definitely it was definitely a shock, I think, to a lot of people. But on the other hand, I don't think I ever lost a single friend because of it, which is why I always tell people, I mean, yes, I had my own issues, but I really was privileged and I really was lucky to grow up in a country that generally is pretty progressive and in an era with, amongst people that were pretty progressive. So, that's part of why I wanted later on to, be an activist and do what I could in some small way to make a difference or try to make a difference.
Well, it's interesting that I don't know if you saw everything Steve and I were talking about, where we've talked about how culture in the entertainment business and really everywhere has gotten so youth oriented. Now, I know, and you've been really open about it, that you came to West Hollywood and came out as a kid, as a teen for the most part, and everybody's like, he's the new kid, blah blah blah, he's so cute, whatever. And then you went through some of the issues that your mom went through, which is you had weight issues, you had image issues, you were the target of a lot of gossip, and not gossip like I write. We're talking about mean-spirited, almost stalkerish kinds of gossip. Yeah. And really, people, because I didn't live through this, people would jump on you on the internet and attack you. And I've always felt that a lot of that comes out of envy and a lot of that comes out of jealousy. But a lot of it does come out of maybe internalized homophobia or somebody's own issues. How did you end up dealing with that? Because it was hard. I remember it.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, there was a famous, more sort of infamous website called WeHo Confidential that it's funny. I try to explain what it was like to people now, like younger, even though I'm only 27, I talked to like 20
younger.
Yeah, who weren't around at that time or weren't, in WeHo at the time. And I try to explain like everyone read this website. Like it was a super nasty, it wasn't, you're right. It wasn't like gossip. It wasn't even gossip really. It was,
it was attacks. It was attacks.
Yeah, and it was really brutal. But and I looking back on it, I actually kind of, I wouldn't say I like that I went through it, but I now think it was actually maybe a good thing in a lot of ways in the end, because it taught me to have a really thick skin. And I think being an aspiring or having run for office in the last few years, I think it really prepared me to deal with anything, because yes, when you run for office, people criticize you and all that, but I very much doubt that anything I ever go through again will be as vicious and as sort of personal as that was. Because look, I can deal with someone saying, oh, he's a dilettante, oh, he's a celebrity kid, blah, blah, blah. I've dealt with that my whole life. But this was like talking about my weight, talking about my appearance, talking about my, my ex, all sorts of horrible things. So, yeah, I actually, in the end, I think it actually made me a stronger, better person, you know?
Okay, so we were talking about being young, and now I still say, to me, you're still young. I don't know if you still feel young. I don't know if you ever felt young, actually. For as long as I've known you, you've always been really an old soul.
Thank you.
And but so I remember a very vivid moment because I, again, always act like I'm 12 years old, and I don't think of myself as just one of the kids. So you and I went to see the Go-Go's in Las Vegas. I think it might have been one of the first things we ever did, like in person, if I'm not mistaken, at the Mandalay Bay show. And the first one, not the second one in the rain, but the first fun one. And so let's see, we've got some pictures. So here's a picture I took of you and your mom and your then boyfriend, Sean.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, that's how old?
9 years ago, 8.5, 9 years ago.
Okay. So after the show, we all went up to your room. Now, I didn't know any of your friends at that time. You were really the only person I knew. No, was Craig Jordan with us? He might have been. Oh, and Nelson.
He's hung. I mean, he's a friend, and we've hung out with him. I think at maybe at a show in LA, but not in
maybe.
Vegas.
Okay, but Nelson was with us because his car broke down. Oh, that was a story. He had his car in the back at the party. But it went up to your room, and these, just to give people an idea, these are some of the people who are in the room. Okay, this is the picture. There's 4 people with all access lanyards, and I think some hooker on the left. I don't know who he was. Who was he? Did you just?
You're talking about on the which one? On the far on the left?
The tank top.
Oh, I actually have no idea who that is.
I have no idea who that is either. He didn't have a pass. I think he was just hot and we invited him in. Anyway, now he must have gotten out of the picture, and there's the picture of me with him.
That's a great picture.
Okay.
It's a cute
now,
picture.
Let me just say, so 5 minutes after that was taken, you and I are talking. Some people are asking, like, who I am, because they all knew each other. And I know this wasn't meant in a negative way. But Duke said, oh, this is Billy Masters. He's one of my mom's friends. And I remember looking and said, one of your mom's friends? I'm thinking I'm one of the kids, and I'm like the chaperone. And it was bizarre. I look at you so red. But it was, and it wasn't, I mean, I'm not blaming you because I am one of your mom's friends.
Well, now that I think about it, and that, like, in the context of it, it does kind of sound like I'm saying he's here, not my friend because he's her friend,
right?
That he's but that's not the way I meant it at all.
Oh, of course, no, but because you and I were friends with a lot of your mom's friends. Most of your friends are older. We should point that out. And so, but I suddenly felt to myself, and Steve and I were talking about this a moment ago, that there was kind of a shift that maybe, now again, it all might be in my head, but suddenly there was an age thing of, oh, I'm the older person in this room. Now I don't bring it up to criticize, I bring it up because now you are the older person. You have gotten older. Have you had a moment yet where you're like with 18, 20-year-olds and like, my God, I'm the adult?
Oh yeah.
Because most of your life you were the kid.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's kind of, I mean, it's shocking sometimes, only because it reminds you like how your perspective changes and
absolutely
how people perceive you. Like, I've had so many times in the last few years, it happens obviously more and more, where I meet somebody and I just assume, because as you said, I used to be always the youngest person in the room.
Right.
And so now I just assume still in my head, oh, that person is either my age or younger. I mean, older.
Yeah.
And I'll say like, oh, I'll just come up. I'll say, oh, how old are you? And they're like, oh, I'm 22. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm 6 years older than you? Yeah. And it's a weird feeling. And then also, I was going to mention about, that happens quite often now. In fact, I was just looking at someone's Instagram who I am friendly with yesterday, and he mentioned on I think it was his birthday, and he mentioned that he was turning 24, and I'm like, wait, I'm 40. I guess and also just people sometimes look older than they are, and so I think I still, because I maybe have a little extra fat on me or a little extra baby fat, I still think I look maybe not older or younger than I am, but I just look a little more, less manly or less.
Right, because you still, and also you see yourself through those eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I see guys who are like younger than me, but because they have more muscle or they're hairier or whatever, I just assume they're older, and I'm like, oh, I'm the older one here. So,
well, welcome to the club. So let's talk about what's going on in the world right now. You took a walk through West Hollywood over the weekend, and you were talking about how really eerie it was.
Yeah, and in fact, that's my new thing. I mean, I'm being very good about ordering in. I have a pizza right here. I mean, I've been following the rules, and I have one mask that I've been using when I go out. But I've been doing it every day now, or almost every day, going on a walk because I can't go to the gym anymore. And, if I don't walk, I'm going to gain, 400 pounds. So,
right.
You have something to do during the day just to get out and get some air. So I take a walk every day, and I go down to where all the bars are. And it was a difficult experience, even though ultimately I know things will go back to normal. And at some point, it was weird seeing a city that is so known for its vibrancy and for being like a bustling, center of our culture. To see that as dead and sort of empty as it was actually a real shock.
How are you doing through it personally?
I'm doing good, actually. I mean, considering, it's funny actually. I'm actually doing sort of the same thing you're doing. I'm doing
Duke's downloads on YouTube.
Download, exactly.
His first guest was his mom.
She was,
which it was great. It was great.
Thank you. Which I thought it was appropriate. I'm like, why not have her?
That's who people want to see. That's who they expect from you.
Yeah, and I think, she and I had done a couple similar interviews in the past, but not for a long time. So I thought, it was a good chance for people to see us in our current situation. But I mentioned this because why do I mention this?
I asked you how you're getting through this and what is changing in your life.
Yeah, I'm doing that, and I'm just walking. Okay. Now I remember why I brought the Duke's. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. I bought up my show because I started coughing in the middle of the interview.
I saw it several times.
Yeah, and I think people were like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you sick?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not sick. I just happened to have a little bit of a cough that day, but." As you can see now, I'm doing pretty fine. So I'm following the rules. I go out once a day for a long walk, but considering everything going on, I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, I'm going to bring Steve in because I have some questions for everybody. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, Jesus. No, let's do it the other way. Let's see. Oh, hello. Okay. This way we all have the same size box. I hate to be elitist with my boxes.
Hi, Duke. Nice meeting you.
Just a pleasure to meet you. Seriously.
I assume you guys have never met before.
No,
we haven't. I met his mother. I'm a friend of his mother's, as you guys were saying. I hosted a show back in the mid-'80s. It was called the Rock and Roll Evening News. And your mother was the first guest on the show.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah.
What
year would that have? 85 or 86?
Like 85 or 86.
Wow. That's incredible. So, no, I've seen a few of the clips from because I know the Go-Go's and my mom did some stuff for E back in the mid to late 80s, and so those clips were on YouTube. So I think I've seen the interview that you guys did back then.
I'm interested because Steve, you just heard Duke and I talking about our experiences. Now, Steve came out in a completely different period. I'm going to get us a little bigger. And Steve, your reasoning for coming out was completely, really reactionary to something that happened at the time.
Right. Back in 1980, I was working at a television station, give you a little background, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the general manager found out I was gay, and he said, you might as well start looking for a job somewhere else because you're not going anywhere. You're not going any further here. And so, it scared me right back into the closet. And I went to work in Louisville, Kentucky, where being gay wasn't a problem, and got to LA. And, I was scared to death that it was going to destroy my career. It would ruin my career, as a lot of people have had that. I'm certain those same kinds of feelings. And then I heard in the late 90s, I heard Nathan Lane, who had always been very discreet about his sexuality. I heard him say that after what happened to Matthew Shepard, that he said, he could no longer stay in the closet or hide his sexuality, because had he been out, or, it's a matter of being visible. And I admire you, Duke, for being as visible and as out as you are. It's a matter of being visible. Had more people known, had seen you on television, or had known Nathan Lane was gay, they think to themselves, well, he's gay and he's not so bad. But, I felt so bad. It felt like some kind of a deception to my tribe to remain closeted. And and there were a lot of gay people working at E, and it just wasn't a problem. And so I came out. Excuse me. I couldn't come out to my parents. They were considerably older, and they wanted nothing to do with that.
Right.
I started to tell my dad once, and he raised his hand like a traffic cop, and he said, Steve, there was a time and place when people's private lives were private. Let's keep it that way.
I have a similar story that with my family knew. My grandmother didn't, and I never told her to the day she died. But at one point, she asked why I was never bringing girls around to meet her. And she said something like, well, maybe you don't like girls, you like boys. But if you did, that would kill me, because I was about to. And I'm like, well, I guess we'll just skip that.
Wow, that's quite a way of phrasing that. Wow.
Yeah. So she's sort of letting you know, I know, but we really don't need to go there. She's dead now. So now I do. And that was one of the last hurdles for me, when somebody that I'm like, I didn't want to be too visible, because not that she was on the internet, but people could say something, and you were protective of the fact that it would affect them. And did it affect them, Steve, when you were on TV? Did they ever hear things? Was it ever an issue?
My dad was a Baptist minister, and I don't know how much you know about Protestants, but everything is kept quiet. Okay. You just don't talk about it. My mom would say, one of her favorite phrases, if something was bothering me, she'd say, just don't think about it. Okay, Mom, that works. So, no, it was never discussed. Never.
It's funny, because I look at that clip with Betty Davis, and there you are, you're sitting there, you're young, you're gorgeous, you've got this beautiful body, you've got the highlights in the hair, the legs are crossed, and I'm sitting at home in a Boston suburb saying, oh, he's gay. But I realize I'm looking at it through my eyes, not your mom's or your dad's.
Well, I'm glad I did come out.
Well, we are, because again, there are people, because of people like you, not as much people like me, because I came out so much later, but people who did it where it was very visible, people like Duke were able to then come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think
it's just important.
That's what I think is interesting, is that do you, Duke, do you look at somebody like Steve's story, and does it still resonate with you, or have things changed so much that you're like, that's like the old days?
Not at all. In fact, it's really funny. I often say that I feel like I'm the last generation where even people a few years younger than me have a completely different experience, where, because like I said, because I think especially in the last 5-8 years, being gay has become such a like practically every movie, every TV show, it's just everywhere. And I feel like, even when I came out, I was looking for, like, kind of like you said, when you'd see someone, whether it was on TV or in a movie, or when you'd see a gay character in a movie, those were hard to find, and you'd really latch on to those people and those characters and those. I would search for LGBT independent films on YouTube. I feel like I was part of that last generation that really had to find those, search for those, people and those, and to learn about what it meant to be gay and what it meant to be part of the gay community. So no, I mean, for me, it was absolutely very important. I always say, there was an independent gay film called The Trip, which was, not very successful in terms of, financially, or it wasn't necessarily the best film. But it was about a gay, couple in the 80s and the AIDS epidemic, and it basically changed my entire life. I might not even be out if it weren't for that film teaching me about, the history of the movement and all that. So, I think it's so important. People on TV, people in film, you never know if you're going to change somebody's life forever. And so I know, I think it's incredible. It's been so incredibly important for people like me to see that kind of representation.
So there, Steve, there's your answer to, you came out for that very reason, and there's the result.
You're giving me far too much credit, but thank you. I'll take it.
Well, you're part of that movement. I really think that is important to own. And, it's interesting when we talk about how things have changed. Because I'm trying to think. I don't think there is somebody who is as visible doing what you did, Steve, who is openly gay on that higher level. It would be like, say, Ryan Seacrest were gay, which he's not. The lawyers have told me to make sure I say he's not. But that's not what Merv told me. But anyway, say he were gay, could he have that job, with Kelly on red carpets? Could he be on American Idol? Could he do that today?
I'd like to think he could.
Yeah.
But you never
I'm not
know.
Sure. Nobody has done it yet.
All it takes is one person who's making the decisions to be a little homophobic. I'd like to think he could do it.
What about
things have changed a lot, and I'm glad for that.
Say it again, me?
What do you think, Duke?
It's on the one hand, I go, like I said, the gay has become so mainstream, and it's so prevalent. But on the other hand, and I won't name names, but I mean, there are some famous musicians. There's one famous musician in particular who I know for a fact is gay, and
sure, Sure, I know what you're saying.
Not in a gossipy way, but because I haven't had physical interactions with them, but I've interacted with them, and I've been actually really sort of disappointed and shocked by the level of deception and the lengths that this person has gone to conceal themselves and trick people. And I go, really, is that necessary in 2020 to be so and to deceptive? And I mean, I know I have no idea what their reasons are for doing that, but it just shows that maybe, I think it's probably unwarranted. I think we have so much evidence that in this day and age, on people on TV, musicians, actors, that it really doesn't matter the way it used to. But I guess there are still people out there who feel that it's an issue and that they have to conceal it, to protect their career.
Well, I'm curious, Steve, did you ever have anybody try to either blackmail you or you being gay against you before you came out?
No, I really didn't.
So again, you were very fortunate in that case, because I know a lot of people have had that. If you do this, I will tell everyone.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, when I was working in Hollywood, my manager was gay, my agent was gay, and the Advocate came to me and wanted me to do a cover story. In fact, it was Chastity Bono. She was working for the Advocate at the time, and they were after me for quite some time. And my agent and my manager both said, you can't do that. You can't do that. And finally, I just went ahead and did it on my own. And there was no fallout. There was no problem that I know of. You know,
right. That was the Judy Weeder interview, correct?
Yes. I love Judy. Yeah. She did a really nice interview.
We have some comments coming in, so let's just see what we've got. Okay, we've got, oh my God. Okay, Steve, this is from Robert L. Did Steve just drink out of a flower vase? That was the biggest glass of iced tea I've ever seen. Steve, show us your glass.
It's Diet Coke.
Okay.
And it's a big mug because I hate having to go back to the refrigerator all the time and fill it up.
Okay, so I do the same thing. I carry these water bottles. I hate to even bring it up. I do it all the time. These bottles come from Italy. When I spend summers in Italy, it's not recent Italy. It's been cleaned, and it's plastic, but I use the same one over and over again because I don't want to go back and forth. So it's the same thing. Who else? Oh, we've got Dookie, our good friend Alex. Hi, guys.
Hi, Alex.
Who else is here? Eric Hyman.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
So,
yeah, hi, Eric.
Of course, Eric, we love. Who else is here? Guys, if you have questions for my panelists, please say hi. Peter Mark Jacobson, who, of course, knows both of us, all of us, the ex-husband of Fran Drescher, who went through his own story. He and Fran will be on, I think, in 2 weeks. So we'll have them. So they're doing, by the way, a table reading of the original cast of The Nanny. They're doing it like this. They're doing it on Zoom, and all of the surviving cast members. I think the only one who's not with us is Annie Gilbert. So they're all doing that. I think next week I will be writing about it on BillyMasters.com. If you're looking to give money to an organization, actorsfunds.org is a great organization. It doesn't just support actors, it supports theater people, performers, musicians, somebody who sings for weddings. They help everybody out, and I think it's a great cause. Very, as Steve said before, we were talking about organizations, and maybe it wasn't you, Steve, they were all splitting together, but organizations that aren't very top heavy, that donate a lot of their money. And so I always look for that. Oh, Monday. Peter Mark Jacobson. The Nanny is on Monday. Okay, so there will be a link on BillyMasters.com. If you've got like a few dollars, become a subscriber. We always enjoy it. Okay, so now the next thing is, Steve, what I like about your clips is that you had a great rapport with most people you talked to. So I'm not going to ask the boring question of who was fun, but who did you not have a good rapport with? Actively tried to avoid talking to?
Mel Gibson.
Really? And this is back in the day.
Yeah, I hated doing interviews with him, and you know he was so active. He just, I thought he was a creep.
Yeah, and you still have to do it.
And as it turns out, he proved me right. Yeah.
So how did you, when you know
one time I saw. This is after I decided that I didn't care much for him. I saw him do an interview with Barbara Walters. And she couldn't get anything out of him either. You know, when you're going to do an interview, you come to play or you don't. Exactly. He never came to play. And I thought, well, if she can't get anything out of him, then I'm not going to feel so bad. But yeah, he's one.
How about co-anchors or people you worked with in E? Not that they were bad, that you just didn't have chemistry with.
Well, I didn't have too much chemistry with Bianca, the first one.
She didn't last very long, if I recall correctly.
Oh, don't take me there.
Long enough.
Don't take me there.
All right. Duke, now you've met a lot of people either on your own or through your parents. Mm-hmm. So was there somebody that you just felt that, you know, I don't like them, or I'm not clicking with them, or I get a bad vibe from them? And I know you're willing to name a name. Oh, he's getting red again, so this isn't going to be good.
I'm trying to think.
I know one that you loved. You loved Tab Hunter.
I love Tab Hunter.
That was great.
Honestly, getting to know him was one of the great, privileges of my life. And, at first it was sort of just, Tab Hunter. I'd seen the documentary, and obviously I'd known who he was and thought he was gorgeous in his time. And I didn't really know much about him in terms of who he was. Was an older man, but I became quite good friends with him and his husband, and what an elegant, still handsome and is into his 80s. Elegant, kind, classy, graceful man. I loved him so much, and even though he was quite old when he passed away, I still was shocked and still sad, because I really had looked forward to hopefully having many more years of friendship with him. Things like when my dog died, I'd already had plans to see him that day, to go up to
remember
Alex, and he was a huge animal lover, and he was so we knew each other. It wasn't like we were best friends, but he was so it was as if he gave me so much love, and he knew how difficult it was to lose an animal. Anyway, it was just, he was so kind and sweet, and I loved him so much.
And really. Speaking of animals, give people your mom's charities and email web address.
My mom has an animal charity, which you can look up. They do a lot of amazing work, called Animal People Alliance. And I actually don't know the exact address.
She wasn't quite sure of it either. The Instagram, I think, is just the name, though, if I'm not mistaken.
AnimalPeopleAlliance.net. And they've saved over 15,000 animals so far. So they do a lot of great work, and I'm really proud of her for that.
Steve, I believe James Mason was dead long before you came to Hollywood. Did you know Pamela Mason, James' grandmother?
No, I didn't.
She was a big socialite in Beverly Hills. I remember Pamela.
I remember when she used to be on the Carson show.
Yeah, was she aunt or grandmother? Grandmother, right?
She was my grandmother, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's funny because even though obviously people, know, or some people know who James Mason was, you would think because he was a more public person that more people would reference him when I meet people. I can't tell you how many people in LA I've had who, have said oh, is your grandmother Pamela Mason? Because if you lived in LA for a long time, you probably either used to hear, especially older people now. They used to hear her on the radio or on local television, or she wrote a gossip column. So she was kind of a well-known person in LA back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
And isn't Pamela Drive is named after her? Is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, right off of Hartford Way in Beverly Hills.
Okay, we have a question from Jim Blankstein, who asks, does I guess have a story about meeting their idol, Jim in Boston?
Let's see.
Davis.
Well, I interviewed Barbra Streisand for Prince of Tides, and I had a friend who was orchestrating a silent auction for Shanti, and I had a copy of the script, and I asked Barbara's manager, Marty Ehrlichman, if she'd sign it for me, and he said, "Well, let's go up and see. When we're done with the interview, we'll see." She was so delightful and such a charming woman. And when the interview was done, he said, "Steve, did you have something you wanted to ask Barbara?" And so, would you sign this? We'd like to do a silent auction for Shanti. She was just wonderful about it. And after that interview, she's one of the few celebrities who sends personal notes. She sent me a personal note thanking me, and it was just terrific. I've never seen any of the difficulty that she's reputed to display from time to time, but I think she's just terrific, and I've been a fan for a long time.
Great, Dookie. What about you?
I have to say, last year I got the chance to meet Bill Clinton, which I have to say was, because I was a political junkie when I was a kid, and I can't even imagine how many hours reading books about him, watching it, just, him on Charlie Rose in the early 90s. I mean, watching his mannerism, everything, just studying him. And when I was 13, I wrote a letter to him saying that, I aspired when I was one day to go into politics, and that I'd seen the photo of him meeting JFK when he was a kid, and that, I would love if he'd send me, something, like a, autograph or something. And I actually got, I'm sure he didn't write it, but I got like a beautiful letter on his letterhead saying, you should pursue your dreams and all that. And so last year when I got to meet him, I took the letter with me, and I said, I could barely talk. I was so nervous. It was so weird, like touching his hand and seeing him there, like in the flesh. And I said, when I was 13, you wrote me this letter, and thanks to you, I'm now running for office myself. And it was a pretty mind-blowing moment. And he couldn't have been more gracious. And he took out his pen and put his glasses on, and he wrote on the letter, and he wrote, to Duke Mason, the lessons still hold. Good luck, Bill Clinton, which was pretty amazing.
Great.
And yeah, it was quite a moment. So anyway, yeah, that's a big one for sure.
Oh, absolutely. All right, we're just at the end. I can't believe it. It has flown by. We want to obviously tell people, listen to our doctors more than our officials, because the doctors, and even you're going to get different contrary views. Keep up with the most current information. You have to make your own decisions about your lives. We want you all, obviously, to stay safe. Guys, do you have anything to say to people about what's going on right now? Steve?
Stay home. Stay home. Keep your distance.
Absolutely. And right. If you do go out, I mean, like, even when I do go on my little walk every day, if somebody is on the sidewalk, I look both ways, but I'll step out into the sidewalk, because both for my own sake, but also for other people, because, we need to look out for each other in all this, So.
Fabulous. I love you both. I'd love to have you back on if this drags on. Apparently, I'm doing this now. So this is my new show. So I appreciate so much both of you doing this. I'd love to say making time for me, but I also realize, where else are you going? So I have a captive audience watching and captive guests.
Exactly. I have no plans.
I appreciate it, and really, I couldn't thank you enough. Thank you both, Duke Mason, Steve Kmetko. I love you both. Thank you. Bye, guys. I am Billy Masters. Thank you for watching. We will be back Thursday. Tuesday next week. Today is Thursday. And Tuesday on April 7th, we have very, very special guests. We have Bruce Valanche live from Hollywood, and we have Andrea Martin coming to us from the north, from Canada. So it will be really fabulous. Eastern is 3 p.m. Eastern, noon on the Pacific Coast. And of course, always you can find us on Facebook and on YouTube on Billy Masters TV. I, of course, can be found at billymasters.com. Guys, please be safe, be smart, and take care of yourselves. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Hi there, guys. My name is James Duke Mason. I'm 18 years old, and I wanted to do this message today because I know how hard it can be to be an openly gay teenager, how difficult it can seem to be gay. I promise you, in the end, it's worth it. You're going to live the life that you dream of and the life that you've always wanted to live. So it gets better. It really does.
How do you want to be remembered?
As a good actress.
I don't think that's going to be a problem.
You don't? Will you say that for me when I'm gone?
Certainly.
It's not going to be too far away, though. So we have to rehearse it now.
Is there